She came to sign a $500 million merger deal, but when the mask slipped, she tore the contract to pieces. The skies over East Hampton were gray and heavy, as if even the weather couldn't decide where this weekend was heading. A sleek black SUV glided up the gravel drive leading to the Bington estate, a place that didn't whisper wealth but declared it with every marble pillar and perfectly manicured hedge. Inside the car sat Danielle Givens, founder and CEO of Neurospace, 41 years old, born in Trenton, New Jersey. Her mother died of lupus when she was just 10. She was raised by an aunt. Danielle built an empire out of code grit and sleepless nights, and now she was here to close a deal that could reshape the future of tech. She adjusted the collar of her charcoal gray blazer understated because she didn't do flash. She preferred outcomes. "Ma'am," her driver said, stepping out to open the door. "We've arrived." She nodded more to herself than to him and stepped out. The house was grand but cold. White walls, white glass, as if built not for living, but for being photographed on magazine covers. The front door opened before she could reach for it. Danielle. A tall man with silver hair and a gleaming, too-practiced smile stretched out his arms in greeting. "Charles Bington. Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Bington." She extended her hand. "Call me Charles, please. We're practically partners now." She smiled politely, though she knew he didn't see them as equals. The Bington family had built their fortune on oil and banking, and now clung to relevance by swallowing what they couldn't control. Standing behind Charles was his wife Victoria in a champagne-colored suit that probably cost more than Danielle's entire wardrobe. Her face was trained just friendly enough, just cautious enough, as though she hadn't decided yet whether Danielle belonged here. "Welcome to our home," Victoria said. "Was your flight smooth?" "Very smooth. Thank you for having me." The house smelled faintly of furniture polish and cold money. A young Latina woman in a black uniform quietly took Danielle's leather handbag and disappeared down the corridor. Charles started pointing out artworks as they walked, but Danielle's mind was elsewhere. She was here to secure a deal, $500 million in equity, global distribution, expanded R&D funding, the kind of deal most CEOs would trade everything for. But Danielle wasn't most CEOs. She'd eaten crackers with mayonnaise for dinner, stayed up late watching her aunt sew school uniforms. The Bingtons had invited her for the entire weekend, a formal dinner tonight, brunch with stakeholders tomorrow, and the signing ceremony on Sunday with a PR team waiting in the wings, everything choreographed. But just a few steps into this house, Danielle felt a chill run through her. Not fear, not hesitation, just awareness. She was the only black woman in this room, possibly in the whole house, maybe for the entire weekend. "Let me show you to your room," Victoria said, gesturing toward the stairs. "We've set up the east wing on the second floor." Danielle paused. "I thought the other guests were in the west wing." Victoria's smile didn't waver. "Yes, but we thought you'd appreciate the privacy." Danielle's gaze held Victoria's a moment too long to be polite, but she said nothing, just nodded and climbed the stairs. Her phone buzzed, a message from her CFO in San Jose. "Any red flags?" Danielle stared at the screen for a moment, then typed back, "Too early to say. But the air here's already thick." Something told her the gloom wasn't just in the skies. She stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window in the private lounge. Outside, the ocean stretched hazy into the horizon. Inside the room was beige and glass, expensive but hollow, like no one had ever cried in here, or laughed too loud. She set her suitcase on the bed and sat down, letting the silence grow. No photos, no books, no sound, just curated furniture. She'd been in rooms like this before: executive suites, private lounges, sponsored retreats, places you're invited into, but only on their terms. The knock on the door broke the silence. It was Clark, the family's personal assistant, still very young, pale-skinned, and overdressed in a slightly oversized navy suit. "Ms. Given?" he said, avoiding eye contact. "Dinner starts promptly at 7, formal attire. The family would like to introduce you to a few board members and close friends before the official announcement on Sunday." Danielle nodded. "Thank you." He hesitated. "There's a stylist downstairs if you need touch-ups or suggestions." The word suggestions hung in the air like fog. Danielle raised an eyebrow. "I think I'm fine, Clark." He blushed and disappeared. Danielle didn't need a stylist. She was already wearing a dark navy sheath dress, clean lines, no excess. Her natural curls were tied back in a neat low bun, tiny gold earrings. Every detail was intentional. She always dressed like someone who knew exactly where she was going because she did. Still, she stood up, looked in the mirror, checked her posture, adjusted her watch. Not for them, for herself. Downstairs, the mood inside the villa had shifted from impersonal silence to a subtle humming energy. Champagne was being poured, hushed greetings exchanged, the soft rustle of expensive fabrics filled the air. Just as Danielle stepped into the hallway, another guest opened his door. An older man, tall, wearing a tuxedo and designer sneakers. He glanced Danielle up and down, not unkindly, then nodded. "Good evening," he said in that rich Boston Brahmin drawl. "Good evening," Danielle replied. They walked down the stairs together in silence. The dining room was enormous, the ceilings nearly 14 feet high, candlelight flickering, and the view of the ocean impossibly cinematic. A long mahogany table dominated the space set for at least 20. At its head, Charles Bington already sat sipping scotch. Victoria stood near the fireplace, smiling softly at a stylish older couple. Danielle scanned the room. No place cards. Charles spotted her and rose arms wide once again. "Everyone," he called this, "is the brilliant Danielle Givens, founder, innovator, and the future of tech." A polite smattering of applause. A few chuckles. Some indifferent nods. Victoria appeared at Danielle's side. "Come, darling, let's find you a seat." But instead of guiding her toward the head of the table where decisions were made, where real conversations started, Victoria led her to a seat halfway down. Not the worst seat, but clearly not in the power zone. Danielle sat. Her eyes flicked toward the table's head. It was all so obvious, the seating chart without a chart, men in suits, wives in pearls, board members and legacy bloodlines. The Bington sons laughed with guests. A waiter poured her wine silently. She didn't touch it. Across from her, a man in his 30s with slicked back hair and a deep tan leaned in, flashing a wide smile. "So you're the genius Charles brought in, huh?" Danielle looked at him. "Genius is a bit much. But yes, I'm the CEO of Neurospace. Neurospace, right, that AI company with the thinking machines and all that?" Her face didn't change. "We build automated decision systems for defense, healthcare, and finance." He blinked. "Oh." The woman next to him gave a soft laugh. "We thought you worked in media. You've got that sort of presence." Danielle let the comment hang, then offered a crisp, chilly smile. "I suppose that was meant as a compliment." "Of course," the woman replied, raising her glass without looking at her. But Danielle knew this wasn't about business. It was about reminding her where they thought she belonged. Cutlery clinked gently. Glasses chimed, laughter drifted from the head of the table where Charles was busy entertaining oil barons, private jet moguls, and men who believed they ran the world. Most days they weren't wrong. Danielle sat among strangers who kept mistaking her for something ornamental, not essential. An older woman, eyes squinting as if trying to read some invisible writing on Danielle's face, leaned in and asked, "So where did you study, dear Stanford?" Danielle replied. "Oh, lovely," the woman said, a note of surprise in her voice. "Good for you." Danielle gave a slight nod. "Thank you." Next to the woman was a man with a square jaw, loose tie, and eyes that tried to seem friendly, but his words were velvet-wrapped daggers. "You know, I told Charles, I liked the move, adding a bit of color to the portfolio. It looks modern, sharp." Danielle looked him straight in the eye. "We're not a color palette, and Neurospace isn't some diversity pick to spice up your resume." He smiled as if he hadn't heard or didn't want to. "No, what I meant was, it's bold, very forward-thinking." The woman next to him let out an awkward laugh and whispered something under her breath. He just shrugged and took another sip. Danielle raised her glass of water, her hand steady, but her mind pulled tight like a wire. She'd been here before, not in this mansion, not with these people, but at this kind of dinner table with these kinds of smiles, those kinds of compliments wrapped in condescension. Across the room, she spotted Gregory Bington, Charles's middle son, chatting with two finance bros at the bar. Slicked back hair shirt, half unbuttoned, the kind of man who never had to follow rules because the world bent them for him. He caught her gaze and winked. She looked away. Victoria tapped her dessert fork lightly against her glass. Everyone, she began, rising to her feet with a politician's smile. "Thank you all for coming tonight. This weekend is special. It's a union of vision and mission. Under Ms. Givens' extraordinary leadership, Neurospace has reshaped how we think about technology." A few polite claps, some nods. Someone cleared their throat. Victoria continued. It's rare to find innovation that still holds heart. Danielle's journey is a story of determination, brilliance, and above all, courage. Danielle's jaw tightened. Courage. The word hovered like she'd survived a car crash, not built a $1 billion company. Victoria raised her glass. To a bold future. The room echoed. To a bold future, Danielle lifted her glass silently. A few minutes later, Gregory drifted over to her seating area, laughing loudly at something no one else found funny. Without asking, he pulled out a chair and sat down beside her. "Danielle Wright," he said, pouring himself another drink. "I've heard a lot about you. Genius brain, major company, giant leap." "That's me," she said, eyes fixed on her plate. He leaned in, lowering his voice like they were sharing a secret. "Honestly, my dad thinks you're very impressive. But there are some concerns about, temperament." Danielle turned. Temperament. "Yeah, founders like you, passionate, driven. But passion can turn into, what's the word? Ah, yes, instability." He smiled like it was just between them. "And let's face it, a $500 million deal needs stability." Danielle stared at him, then asked Gregory, "Tell me something, if I were a 45-year-old white guy in a Patagonia vest and all birds, would you still be worried about my temperament?" He blinked, giving an awkward chuckle. "Come on now, no need to get sensitive. I was just asking a question. I'm just speaking for the board, really." Danielle stood up. No warning, no theatrics, just stood. "If you'll excuse me," she said, voice cool as ice. She walked away, ignoring glances, frowns, whispers. Her heels clicked steadily across the marble floor until they disappeared down the hallway. But silence doesn't mean surrender. Sometimes it just means you're done playing the game. The guest bathroom down the corridor looked like it was ripped from an interior design magazine, chrome fixtures gleaming, a wall-length mirror more designed to impress than to serve. Danielle locked the door, then exhaled. It wasn't a sigh, just air leaving her body, as if her lungs were too tired to hold in one more forced smile. She didn't cry, not because she didn't want to, but because she wasn't allowed to. She looked in the mirror, sharp jawline, steady eyes, hair pulled back in a low, neat bun like a soft kind of armor. People always mistake composure for coldness, but they don't understand the price of holding your ground in rooms designed to make you feel small. Her phone buzzed. A message from Shauna Kim, CFO of Neurospace. "You okay?" Danielle hesitated, then typed, "I'm rethinking everything." The 3 dots appeared. Shauna was typing, "Talk to me." Danielle looked at the screen, then replied, "It's not just a bad dinner, it's the name, the one we'd have to tie to ours on every document, every press release. I don't know if I can swallow that." Shauna didn't reply right away. Then the message came through. "You told me once we don't ask for a seat. We build our own damn table." Danielle's fingers paused midair. That line, it echoed louder than any insult from tonight. She'd built Neurospace from a library laptop. No money, just code, coffee, and a vision stubborn enough to outlast doubt. And now they called her impatient, too sensitive, and told her she should be grateful to even share the table. A soft knock at the door. "Danielle." It was Victoria. Danielle opened the door. Victoria tilted her head, voice softening. "You okay?" Danielle gave a faint smile. "I just need a little time." Victoria lowered her voice. "I know Gregory can be a bit blunt, but don't take it to heart. He's just been a little overindulged." "Overindulged?" Danielle crossed her arms. "You mean privileged, don't you?" Victoria blinked. Danielle held her gaze. "Let me ask you this. If your son were running a company like I am, would people question his temperament? Would they seat him far from where the decisions get made? Would anyone assume he's just a checkbox to make the team look good?" Victoria hesitated. "You're interpreting things a bit subjectively." Danielle shook her head. "No, I'm interpreting exactly what you've shown me." Silence. Victoria's lips pressed together. "This deal is a big opportunity for both sides." Danielle nodded. "That's exactly what's making me question it." Victoria forced a smile. "I hope you'll reconsider how you're feeling." Danielle didn't break eye contact. "I'm not feeling, Victoria. I'm thinking." Then she stepped past Victoria back into her room. Inside, she opened her laptop. Her inbox was overflowing, investors, board members, press, all awaiting the Monday morning announcement. She opened the draft. The message was simple. After careful consideration, Neurospace will not move forward with a partnership with the Bington Group. She stared at it, then typed one more line. We believe core values are not negotiable. She hit save but didn't send it. She'd sleep on it, but her gut had already decided. And when Danielle Givens trusted her instincts, she was rarely wrong. The next morning, sunlight spilled into the room, casting stage-like light across the wall. Danielle was ready, black trousers, a cream blouse, hair pulled into a neat low bun, no jewelry, no flash, just clarity. She sat on the edge of the bed, laptop open on her lap, eyes locked on the draft she'd written the night before. Her fingers hovered over the trackpad, but she didn't press send. Not yet. A soft knock. Come in, she said. It was Shauna, her CFO, her longtime ally, who had taken the red-eye from California after reading Danielle's message. You really flew over, Danielle asked softly. Shauna nodded. You don't need strategy right now. You need someone in your corner. Danielle smiled. Thank you. They sat in silence for a moment. Are you really walking away from the deal? Shauna asked, studying her. Danielle didn't answer right away. She closed the laptop. I think I already have. Shauna leaned back in the armchair by the window. You know what Wall Street will say? Emotional, unprofessional. They'll spin it like you're the problem. Danielle nodded. Let them talk. Shauna watched her. I'm with you no matter what. But you don't have to do this just to prove a point. Danielle walked to the window and looked out. I'm not proving anything, she said. I'm protecting everything we've built. Neurospace was never just about money, she continued slowly. It's about possibility, about the future, and those people, they don't see us. They see something shiny to control. Shauna exhaled. So what's the plan? Danielle turned back calm and steady. We hold a press conference today. No drama, no attacks, just the truth. Clear professional public. The board's going to ask 1,000 questions, and I'll have 1,000 answers. They know who I am. They know I don't pretend. Shauna laughed. You sure you don't want to swing by Gregory's place and tell him exactly where to shove his daddy's money? Danielle let out a soft chuckle. Tempting. But no. Honor first. A beat. Then Shauna asked, So what are you going to wear? Danielle laughed out loud. You thought I'd do this in a hoodie. 2 hours later, Danielle stepped into the grand sitting room at the Bington estate where Charles, Victoria, and their legal team were waiting. The atmosphere was heavy, polished, like a storm had passed, and everyone was just waiting to see where the debris would fall. Danielle Charles stood hands clasped in front of him like a man used to being thanked. We need to talk, she said, then took a seat. Thank you for hosting me, she began, but I've decided to withdraw from the merger. Victoria's smile froze. Charles blinked as if he didn't understand what she'd just said. I'm sorry, but I'm pulling out, effective immediately. Charles's voice stayed calm, but his face flushed. Danielle, this deal is nearly closed. Do you understand how much capital you're walking away from? I do, she said. And I also understand what kind of company mine would become if I said yes. Victoria cut in. If this is about what Gregory said, it's not just about Gregory. Danielle interrupted gently but firmly. It's about tone, about posture, about how you treat a form of leadership you're not used to. Charles made another attempt. If we've made you uncomfortable, Danielle raised a hand. You didn't make me uncomfortable. You simply confirmed that this was never a partnership. It was a takeover disguised as progress. Silence. Danielle stood up. You can keep the check. Neurospace will be just fine. But her words wouldn't stop there. Within minutes, the whole world would hear them. Danielle stood in front of a plain white backdrop at the East Hampton Community Center, not the Bington estate, not a glamorous banquet hall. Just a modest auditorium with a podium and a few rows of folding chairs now packed with reporters, photographers, and curious onlookers who'd caught wind that something big was about to happen. Shauna stood off to the side, managing media through her phone. No one knew exactly what Danielle would say, but the press had smelled smoke and they'd come looking for fire. Danielle adjusted the mic. No teleprompter, no script, just a few note cards she barely glanced at. Thank you all for coming, she began, her voice clear and steady. I'll keep this brief, because clarity doesn't take long. She looked directly into the camera. After much consideration and thought, I've decided to withdraw Neurospace from the proposed merger with Bington Group. A murmur swept the room. Pens scratched faster. Flashbulbs popped like nervous heartbeats. This decision is final, she continued. It's not about money, it's not about legalities, it's about something far more important: values. The room held its breath. Neurospace was founded with one mission: to build technology that empowers human potential. But it was also built on something less measurable: dignity, accountability, and vision. I've always believed a company's culture matters as much as its code. She flipped to the next card. The past 48 hours have been enough for me to realize partnering with Bington would compromise the DNA of what we've built. Not because they aren't successful, but because their success was never made for people like me. A hush. They invited me to the table, but from the moment I walked in, I knew I wasn't expected to lead. I was meant to decorate. The murmurs grew louder. Danielle stood her ground. This isn't personal. It's a matter of principle. Neurospace will grow with partners who truly see us, not just our numbers. And I say this to every founder, every leader, every woman, every person who's ever been asked to shrink in a room. They deserve to stand tall, and you don't have to accept disrespect just to be given a shot. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Damn." Danielle ended without drama, without theatrics, just calm conviction. We're not in the business of selling out, we're building the future. A beat of silence. Then the applause came, at first scattered, then erupting. Reporters surged forward, microphones outstretched. "Danielle, how is Bington responding? Is Neurospace seeking a new partner? Are you worried about the market reaction?" Danielle held up one hand and smiled gently. "We'll address all of that in due time. But today isn't about them. Today is about us." She stepped back from the mic. Shauna joined her backstage. "You just burned down the internet." Danielle raised an eyebrow. "In a good way," Shauna laughed. "In a very good way." The two of them exited through a side door, walking toward a waiting car. As it pulled away from the community center, Danielle glanced down at her phone. Notifications rolled in hundreds, then thousands. One message stood out from a young founder she didn't know. "Thank you for showing us how to walk away with our heads held high." Danielle stared at that message for a long time. But the real wave was only just beginning. And she had just changed the way leaders like her would be seen forever. The next 48 hours were chaos, not for Danielle, but for the Bington family. Headlines spread like wildfire. Black woman CEO walks away from $500 million deal over principles. Neurospace founder refuses to be a token, cancels merger with Bington. Danielle Givens draws the line, and the public stands with her. Every major financial outlet picked it up. The press conference clip appeared everywhere. TikTok, Twitter, morning talk shows, even late-night comedy. The internet did what it does best: it dug deep. Old videos of Charles Bington cutting off female executives resurfaced and went viral. Gregory's college-era tweets indefensible. A speech from Victoria at a private gala about preserving family legacy quoted everywhere. A board member quietly resigned. A few donors pulled out from Bington Group's quarterly fundraiser. Their PR team tried to reframe the situation as a misunderstanding. But no one bought it because Danielle hadn't stormed out or shouted. She simply told the truth calmly, clearly, and the world listened. At Neurospace headquarters in Palo Alto, the atmosphere felt like they'd just won a national prize. Employees started printing T-shirts that read, "We build, we don't beg." Danielle didn't officially approve them, but she smiled when she saw them. Investors called not to scold, but to show support. One admitted over the phone, "I underestimated the positive brand impact. But now, you have something money can't buy: loyalty." New partners reached out, smaller but better aligned. Funds led by women. Capital groups owned by people of color. Even international science alliances seeking innovation without the arrogance. A week later, Shauna walked into Danielle's office with a stack of documents. "There are 5 new proposals," she said. "One is from the Dyson Institute. They want to adapt your defense model into a civilian safety system for city hospitals." Danielle didn't look up from her laptop. "Will they operate under our structure?" Shauna nodded, smiling. "They said they'll follow our lead." Danielle raised her eyes. Then, she nodded. "That's the difference." That night she sat alone in her office, the lights dim, the city glowing behind her. Her phone buzzed again. Another message: "You didn't just protect your own company, you gave us permission to do the same." Danielle read it twice, then set the phone down. Her mind drifted back to that long wooden table where she'd once been seated in the middle like a guest. Not a peer. They wanted her mind, but not her voice. But what they didn't understand was her voice was her brilliance. She didn't need their table. She was the table. And now the world had learned a lesson. If you don't recognize someone's worth while they're present, you'll feel the power of their absence. Never trade your values for validation. Never let power silence you. You don't need to shrink to fit a room, especially when you've already outgrown it. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed a relaxing and captivating storytelling experience. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support gives me the motivation to create more amazing content.